At Stribe, we have an incredibly talented team behind the scenes from the Northwest, including Sandy Lindsay of Tangerine PR in a previous session, Liz Whiteley, who delivers the People Survey nationally, and Ian Nelson from the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. In terms of our organisation, we operate a hybrid working model and are headquartered in Greater Manchester's Tech Centre. Our lead investor is the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. We're a digital supporter of the GM Good Employment Charter, and we are one of the top 20 Northwest SME tech companies to work for 2021. At Stribe, we aim to connect people, helping them feel happier, safer, and heard in their daily work life. In our busy work lives, teams change and grow, and workloads heave and flow. So how do you make sure everyone is okay? We help teams to be heard, taking their small insights day by day, leading to real change that matters. Because as Chris mentioned, when people are heard, teams are happy. We're partners with some of the world's most forward-thinking organizations, and just focusing on three in the north, we have Wigan Council, Tangerine PR, and Wigan and Lee College, to name but just a few. And as Chris mentioned, employees' needs are rapidly changing. Every employee has their own needs, and everyone's at a different place in their life. This creates a complicated picture for teams with many challenges being amplified by COVID-19. So being able to effectively monitor employee needs will be crucial to the new world of working as we move forward. And ultimately, the bigger the team becomes, the more complicated it becomes for senior leaders to support. And we've supported organizations throughout the pandemic to answer questions such as, how do I create an inclusive workforce? How do I pulse check my staff? How do I measure the mood and well-being of my staff? How do we reach and support remote workers? How do we compare our services to understand what is and isn't working? As we're focused on today, how do I give my employees a voice and communicate with them effectively? In terms of processes and systems being used to do this, it's currently a very complicated picture for businesses of all shapes and sizes. And if you were to map out how you're currently supporting, communicating with your people, this is probably what it looks like. And in fact, one takeaway is I'd urge you all to take the time to map out what you're currently doing and what you have in place, as it will enable you to identify any gaps and any crossovers in terms of how you're listening to employees and what you're doing with that data. When it comes to employee voice, communication, and engagement, there are three aspects that I believe need to be joined up to be able to measure the middle boxes and drive the outcomes at the bottom. And that is, as Chris mentioned, your kind of surveys, your annual surveys and your pulse elements, your employee voice and actually listening to your staff in that two-way conversation, and then your policies, resources, and support and that content of how you bring that together in one central way. And in order to be successful, you need a joined up framework, which does include technology in this modern world, to be able to create an inclusive, engaged, and high-performing workforce. So working in partnership with a number of Northwest organizations 2 years ago of all shapes and sizes, we created a solution that made it really quick and simple for HR leaders to support their teams whilst accessing data and insights to drive change. A successful framework is built, I believe, on three key principles. On the top left-hand side, you have employee voice and pulse checks to collect those real-time insights, followed by the top right, which looks at the target interventions as a result of those insights collected from your employees. So what are you doing as a result of those insights that you get from your employees? Within that overall key focus of being able to measure and monitor outcomes as a result of implementing interventions. As Chris mentioned, just trying things and measuring what happens can make a real difference. If it doesn't move the needle, then stop it and change something and add something new in place. As I mentioned at the start, we're a digital supporter of the GM Good Employment Charter, and we're supporting three of their characteristics, which is engagement and voice, health and well-being, and people management. And our technology's key features enable employee voice in a number of different ways. So we focus on pulse checks and question sets, which include sentiment analysis and word clouds with lots of clever tricks to bring out those insights to measure that quantitative and qualitative data. We enable two-way conversation via employee voice to suggest ideas, raise concerns, and give feedbacks. Recognition is really key. We have a platform called Shoutouts to help you recognize colleagues and to celebrate those magic moments and little victories within your teams, no matter where they are. And smart resource hubs, as Chris mentioned, to ensure employees have access to the right information at the right time. Sometimes that's all your colleagues need. It's just to know where to look and what to read about to support what they're doing. In order to collect regular insights with high engagement levels, you ultimately need trust with your people. And our technology framework is built to be anonymous unless the employee wants to reveal themselves as their own employee-led model. But when you introduce any new technology, it's important to think about your employees and how they'd like to provide feedback to you, because every employee, every organization is different. So it's really, really important to think about what you're introducing and why. But as we found over the last 12 months in particular, in order to make employee voice frameworks work, your staff need to be able to access your technology anytime, anyway. And this has been a huge part of digital transformation and engagement. For our technology, we ensure that you can access on all computers and devices, so those that may be office-based. You can also pulse questions directly into email inbox to remove that friction so that employees aren't having to log in. They literally are responding via one click. It's also important to think about employee apps, both on iOS and Android, so that all of your staff, no matter where they are, can access at the right time. And we've really been testing the boundaries using new technologies such as QR codes to help organizations with those most remote staff in the most remote locations to be able to still collect insights and give the opportunity for staff to give feedback, particularly in manufacturing plants or on construction workforces, for example, where previously it's been very difficult to collect those insights. I just want to spend the next 2 minutes reviewing the different types of technology that can support your employee voice framework and hopefully just empower you to go away and think about what you have in place and what you may need to implement over time. As Chris mentioned, pulse surveys are a great way to capture real-time insights from your employees, making it really easy for you to understand what your people are thinking and how they are feeling. Ultimately, asking the right question or questions on a regular basis will enable you to have a temperature check across your organization, which can be reviewed against any of your priorities, which is really important. Giving the employees and your employees the ability to suggest ideas, provide feedback, and to raise concerns from anywhere, anytime enables you to listen to your employees and support them ultimately at the earliest opportunity. Two-way conversation is so important when it comes to engaging your people. And as Chris mentioned, sometimes just being heard is enough to drive that engagement and feel listened to support you within your organization. As I mentioned, sometimes your employees just need to access the right information at the right time. Many employers still provide paper-based policies and resources, or they have their support locked away on intranet sites. It's difficult for the majority of their staff to access. So providing your people with the ability to access the right information at the right time is really important. And also having the ability to track what's being searched for and what's being viewed by teams is really important from a HR perspective. This approach enables you to be really proactive in terms of the support and the resources that you provide and allow you to be ahead of the curve in what your employees are wanting from you as the organization in order to be supported. And as we move to a world of hybrid working and COVID recovery, never has it been more important to provide social network and support and a way for colleagues to recognize one another and motivate one another by celebrating those little victories every day, for example. And with 84% of HR leaders saying an employee recognition program has enabled an increase in employee engagement, recreating those water cooler moments and connecting your people whilst they work remotely is going to be so important in the future world of work and ultimately leading to the retention of your staff. As your people reply to your pulse questions or indeed any of the questions that you ask, your dashboard in your technology should collate both quantitative feedback and qualitative feedback in real time. It should be smart and it should be clever. What it needs to do when you're thinking about implementing technology, you want to be able to have the insights and data to hand in real time. Previously, we've had to wait for annual survey results to come back, but that's too late. We need instant real-time feedback to support the real-time change that's needed. And as Chris mentioned, your employee voice framework must deliver impact and align with your core priorities. It has to align to the overall business objectives and the goals of your organization. We've worked closely with Wigan and Leigh College over the last 8 months to implement their employee voice framework. And as a result of introducing technology such as Stribe to connect their people, Wigan and Leigh College have had some incredible outcomes. By giving their employees a voice, they've recently been able to named as top 100 best not-for-profit organization to work for 2021. and were acknowledged as 3-star world class for their levels of engagement. So it just shows what can happen when ultimately you give your employees a voice and allow them to be heard. So in summary, in a modern world where employees are working in many different locations, many different environments, with many different unknowns, it's super important that when looking to implement your employee voice and engagement strategy, you also implement a digital framework that enables you to provide your employees with a voice wherever they are.